Happy Tuesday, y'all. Welcome back to Disrupt Your Now, the show for entrepreneurs who want to shake things up or want to be entrepreneurs who want to learn from other people and do it right, do it better the first time. Tonight, my guest is Terry Rich. Y'all may have heard of Terry. If you're a news junkie or true crime junkie like me, you probably heard of him because he was the head of the Iowa Lottery when they cracked the biggest lottery scam or fraud in the U.S. history. So it's so funny when I met you because I was like, oh my God, I've been reading about that. And Terry's from Des Moines, where some of my family lives too. So that's pretty cool. But he is the author of the $80 billion Gamble. And I'm going to let you tell them about your other book. But so, Terry, take it from here. Tell us more about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Sure.
We'll go from there.
Hey, I grew up on a farm and we didn't have much money, but we were always happy. It was really an
Mhm.
amazing lifestyle in the early days because you have to be entrepreneurial on the farm. You know, if a tractor broke or whatever, you didn't have just be able to go to the store and pick one up. You had to figure out how to fix things. And I think that really helped. The other was my dad and my mom were very encouraging. When I'd be really crazy and said, I don't want to go down and feed the goat the milk, could I just get a pipe from up at the house to go, crazy things and how to do something? They'd laugh. They'd say, okay, try it. I was always encouraging. Even when I failed, they always said, well, have you thought about this or that?
That's
So anyway, I
awesome.
graduated, went to school. I was going to be a math major. My brother-in-law had a PhD, so I thought I'm going to get a PhD, become a math professor. And about halfway through college, someone said, hey, do you know you can go over here, talk, and make a living? I said, I'm in. So I decided to get into TV and radio. And at the time, cable television was just getting started, and all my buddies went to broadcast television, but I decided to help out with a cable company. And they decided to hire me, or they asked if I would join them. And this was before cable was cool, but this is when Ted Turner was not known. And we became friends with the folks like Ted Turner, helped start the MTVs and a real entrepreneurial company called Heritage Communications to build these cable systems all across the state and the Midwest, and ultimately Dallas, Texas, and Wilmington, Delaware, and San Jose, California. So
That's
that was
cool.
really, really entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And in that, I had kind of a major break I'll talk about in just a second that really set my career on edge. But ultimately, the Bass Brothers, a company that were buying and doing hostile takeovers of companies, came in, tried to get our company. We were a New York Stock Exchange company, had broadcast TV stations and billboards and all these media deals. Anyway, we decided to do a leverage buyout.
Mhm.
Didn't know what that was, and they were paying me in stock, and I didn't think I was making a lot in salary, but ultimately we cashed out when I was age 40, and it was a pretty good deal, so to
That's
speak. It was like
awesome.
the way Google was today. But all
Mhm.
of a sudden, I realized one thing my dad told me was, hey, work hard for someone, and when you turn 62, you're going to get your Social Security, and you're going to be happy. And I realized I'm at 40 and now I've got the money I really had as a goal in my life. I had the lifestyle I really liked and the people, the whole entrepreneurial spirit. What the heck am I going to do? Happiness doesn't happen when you hit that goal. Happiness happens on the way to success, and how fun that was for those 20 years with that company. So I decided to take about 10,000 bucks and start my own company. What the heck? They could do it. And maybe I can. And that company was started as my own company to do HBO free previews. And I'll tell you kind of how I got into that in just a second, but it really took off. And so then I started, bought my own radio station, sold it. I had 3 or 4 different companies that we started. And at age 50, everything's going great. I said, you know what? It's time. I want to get off the road. I'm traveling all over the country, all over the world. I've got the money I want. What do I do? And I thought, midlife crisis. So I got a call from an ex-governor who said, hey, I heard that you may be looking for something as a give back to the community. We're going to take over the zoo. It's about to go under. They're losing 600,000 a year. Would you be interested in helping us and running the zoo? And I
Mm.
thought, well, I grew cattle when I was on a farm. Yeah, maybe. So I took over the zoo and we turned it around. We took it over and changed it from a $600,000 deficit, cash flowed it right away,
Wow.
and raised almost 15 million or 12 to 15 million dollars in endowment. So it'll be around whether there's a pandemic or anything
Oh,
else. It became the second largest cultural attraction in our state.
That's
And
amazing.
finally, I got a call from the governor who said, "Hey, the lottery director is about to quit. Do you want to come in?" Hey, as you can tell, I love promotion. I love marketing.
Mhm.
So, instead of $3.5 million at the zoo, it was $350 million a year. And so we increased the cash flow by about 50%. But halfway through that is where this big infamous story started. I really wasn't in. I went in as a marketing sales guy, promotions person, and ended up as an ethics and integrity dude because we busted the largest lottery fraud in U.S. history. So I retired 2 or 3 years ago. And professional speaking, I go out and talk to a lot of banks and a lot of folks about new ideas, innovation, entrepreneurship, and of course, how to stay out of trouble so you don't have internal fraud.
So true. You have such a diverse background. I love it. And you are the second person within the past, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks who grew up on a farm and specifically said, growing up on a farm taught me how to think entrepreneurially. So I think that's so cool. And I wanted to say, I don't know if that's the zoo that I went to, but it probably is. My cousin's son is on the spectrum. And so he had an individual lesson plan. He went to a special school. He was basically the only one in his class. And part of his individual learning plan, he had a little job at the zoo, not a paid job, but he went and he had very specific things that he did. And so that's probably the same zoo. And I just wanted to say that meant so much to him. And now he owns a business. He learned so much there.
Oh, cool. And you know what? The zoo is someplace I realized because I didn't know a lot about exotic animals, but the
Yeah.
zookeepers do. And when you hire a zookeeper, you put a zookeeper ad in the national trades. Everybody wants to be a zookeeper. The average start pay is $19,000 to $20,000 a year, and they sure work hard with their heart. And everybody there is dedicated to preserving wildlife across the world. So
Yeah.
I'll tell you a couple of ways we helped raise money in that here and as part of this session too. But what a
Yeah.
fun career. And it all goes back to the farm, hard work, and then ultimately a couple of lucky breaks where got me on the Johnny Carson show. So
Oh man.
that's my life. And I got to change jobs every time on my own. I didn't get fired or anything else. It was all because I decided it's time's next step. Most people don't get that opportunity.
That's so true. That is so perfect. You didn't have to do the same thing all the time, but you were in control of when and what you were doing. That's awesome. Tell us about the zoo. Yeah, how did you turn that around?
All right, here it is. When I got the call on the zoo, they said it's losing money. Now, just like about any product that you're gonna sell, if you're an entrepreneur, you try to look for that angle. What makes it different? And the zoo, anybody that was 2 to 12 in this area, you go to the zoo. You take your
Mhm.
kid to the zoo. Most people go once when they're a kid, once when they take their kid, and once when they take their grandkid. So if you can't cash flow it with a guaranteed audience of those people, what do you have to do? You've got to expand the audience. So we brainstormed with the employees and said, we want to do some different things. And they said, oh, we got to be careful. We can't disrupt the animals' time
Mhm.
schedule and all that sort of thing. We said, well, if we make money, you get money back for enrichment for the animals. And we got them to buy in, and that helped a lot. But we started thinking, how do we get young adults? Because young adults, remember that you're a kid, you have kids, you have grandkids. Well, that young adult, a lot of people, how do we get them in? And we looked around at everybody, and everybody said, booze.
I was gonna
Okay.
say.
Well, why don't we bring them in? Well, they don't want to come in when the kids are there. Well, let's do Zoo Brew. Let's start at night. They can come in. Let's sell alcohol. Let's have a band. We'll have the animals out. And instead of going to a smoky bar somewhere, they can come in and bring your date. And all of a sudden, we started getting all these people in. I think last year they sold $250,000 just in booze at this Zoo Brew.
Oh
The other thing we did, which was fun, is they said, okay, they said, we really want a new exhibit. And I said, well, how much is that? $2 million. Well, we don't have $2 million. We've been losing, but we need to get more people through the door paying money. And we thought, well, what else do we have that's free at the zoo? And well, animals poop. Let's do an exhibit. And it was called Scoop on Poop. We brought it in from outside, and you could see elephant poop. Kids would come in, they'd giggle. Oh, it's just hilarious. And then we realized that tiger poop is a predator, right? Tigers are predators, and so our white-tailed deer, which was eating all the flowers that everybody in suburbia, they if they smelt that, deer wouldn't go near it. So we started selling gallon buckets of tiger poop and collected it all. We
Oh my
made
gosh.
about 20, 25 grand on that. But the ultimate, when it was all said and done, was bringing that all together and getting the excitement. Then the donors started coming in. The price was, I think, $4.95. Most entrepreneurs, want to charge too little. You get what what you pay for. And we knew that the zoos down the road were spending 25 to 30 bucks a person to get in. We were charging $4.95, or the city was. They were worried people would be mad because taxpayers. So I raised the price to $9.95 immediately. We cash flowed the joint. And then we gave away free kids tickets to every disadvantaged kid. We told the people in front, somebody comes in and the mom says, "Oh, this might be too expensive." Let them in free, because we're making money from everybody else is driving in to see what our zoo's like. It's paying 30 bucks down the road. And it was really pretty easy. And then the excitement brought more money. And then the endowment, which with nonprofits is a very important piece.
Yeah.
The endowment, by having a big chunk of money and just using the funds off of that, we could pay for everything. And now we could worry about building new exhibits with the money that people donated.
That is such a great story. And I always make this point to nonprofit clients is you have to stop acting like every other nonprofit. You have to act like a business. You
Absolutely.
can't just be like, give me money, because that's always going to be the first thing that goes, and everybody else also has their hands out to the same people. So I totally love how y'all did that by thinking entrepreneurially. The
Let's go
food
back.
is the best.
Let's go back to the entrepreneur of how I was trained. Obviously, it had a little bit in it coming from the farm, but coming up through the cable company. And I think when you don't have any money, it's easier to risk money.
Yeah.
Once you make a lot of money, if you're blowing the same amount, everything you got to try the next project, you're probably not going to have it for a long time. So I learned this. I started making money to take 10%, 25%, and I reinvest that. Instead of going to the gambling joint and gambling it there, I try to look for something brand new that I think is going to be cool and try to make money by investing and doing that, so that if I lose it, just like in gambling, it doesn't bother me if I'm only spending X amount and I know I can afford to lose that.
Mhm.
So when I got into the cable business, I wanted to try a few new things, and I started doing some on-air work. And so I'm on TV and I'm looking over and I thought, geez, that razor's working pretty good. So I'm going to write Schick and tell them how much I love their Track 2 razor. So I sit down, put out a letter and sent it off, knowing within 2 weeks they'd give me a call and I'd be going to New York and doing this TV commercial and having fun and just have all sorts of success. And then what it'd be like to be on national television. Boy, I thought about that for those 2 weeks and had the same thought that many people do when they're playing Powerball. What if
Yeah.
I got asked to go to New York and do TV spots? 2 weeks to the day, I get the letter back. Here's what it said. Dear Mr. Rich, expressing your complete satisfaction with your Track 2 razor, we regret to inform you that Gillette makes it, Schick doesn't. You wrote the wrong company. Oh, no.
Oh my God,
Well,
Gary.
I learned quickly that you want to do your details when you're doing business. But on the other hand, that gave me such enthusiasm that over the years, I kept thinking, how do I get to the goal that I wanted to be on national television? And 3 years later, I got a call from my little hometown where the farm was, town of 50 people, said, we're going to have a centennial. Now, we don't know whether 100 years, but we're going to have a party anyway. Will you help us with publicity? And so they asked me to help, and we brainstormed. And my whole concept of daring to dream, everybody has $1 million idea, but until you act, daring to act,
Yep.
you'll never make any money. It's not the creativity that makes you money. It's the innovation, actually doing something with it. So I got with them and we came up with the idea that we were going to, they looked at me and said, you're our most famous person because you've done TV. And I said, let's adopt somebody. And every week I opened our eyes. There's the idea. So we sent out letters and I've sent out a press release saying we want to adopt a celebrity to be the 51st citizen of Cooper, and sent it
Oh.
off. And I hit the wrong button. I got 44 letters printed. I don't know, who am I going to send this to? We only have about 3 press people around this little town. So I went to the next town over who had a library and wrote down New York Times, London Post, just sent them all out. And here's the key. You know what? Failure is the first step to success, because I failed. If I had only sent out one letter, you probably wouldn't have me on today. I sent out 44 letters and 43 of the 44 letters failed. But the next morning at 9:00, I got a call from a guy from UPI. He said, small town, I don't know what UPI stands for, United Press International. And I like the story. I want to put it on the national wires and I want to get a couple quotes. So I gave him the quotes, hung up thinking, nothing's going to happen. We're just trying to get a little, if we can get double our size from 50 to 100, it'd be a great centennial. Lo and behold, a half hour later, the phone rings. Hello, is this Terry Rich? Yeah. My name's Jim McCauley. I'm a talent coordinator with The Tonight Show. Johnny grew up in Iowa, or was born in Iowa, and he liked it. We're going to go into a staff meeting. I want to make sure that we're first. We get an exclusive here. Will you guarantee that if we do something, you'll wait for us, and when we get out of this meeting, because you're going to get called from all the fact shows, reality shows. I said, heck yeah, laughing. Yeah, you think I'm not going to? I'm going to turn that down. So I hung up to call my buddy to say, hey, we just got a call from The Tonight Show. And I hear this, hello. Yeah, I didn't get a dial tone. This is Judy Steinberg. I'm with Good Morning America. We have 2 tickets. We want you in New York tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
I said, I'm sorry. This is like viral that people have today on TikTok. It went viral.
And what year was this?
I had to tell her no. She got mad, threatened me with lawsuits. Long story short, we got a call back. They talked about uplinking uplinking from our town to Johnny Carson and Burbank, split screen. And then they talked about doing the entire show from there. So he came out, met us, liked it. And lo and behold, he said, we're having some technical problems, but we're going to bring 3 of you out to be on The Tonight Show. So we got to go out, limousine, airfare, meet Johnny. We were on before Tom Jones. We got 2 commercial breaks, and we're in front of 20 million people talking about Cooper, Iowa. Well, Cooper, Iowa Centennial didn't have 100 people. My official number was 230,522, but the Des Moines Register said 12,500 showed up for our centennial. But the story doesn't. Remember I talked about failure, is a first step to success. Yeah. We failed by sending 44 letters out because only 43 of them didn't work. 1 did. But the idea that we got out of that was Johnny Carson's group saying we could uplink from Cooper, Iowa. It had never had a satellite uplink from the Midwest in that day. And so I started thinking, I'm working for the cable company and we're doing free HBO previews. We'd go town to town and just turn on HBO and then jump on the air in between the movies, say, hey, if you like HBO, call us now. So I went to my boss and said, can we do this? And he said, well, talk HBO into it. You can do it. So I called my buddy at HBO, said, no, I don't think so. He said, but you're a good client. We sent it up the ladder and the head of engineering called and said, hey, when do you want this uplink? Yeah, we'll take it in. That uplink that week, even though we had failed all those times to get that idea, that uplink generated $15 million in 1 weekend for our company.
Oh my gosh.
Shot my career up. And that's how, when we started our new company, I took something that I knew all about and started taking that to the ESPNs and the HBOs and Showtimes and Starz, and just used it as a business for 10 years. And it just cranked out cash and was a heck of a deal.
That is such a great story. I love it. So when you took it to them, though, the business that you started, was that being the creative idea person for them?
It was the idea of doing the satellite uplink, and then we start branching out ideas. Once you get an idea, you figure out all the different ways you can use it. Then we could go to ESPN, and Bo Holyfield were the 2 prize fighters, heavyweight prize fighters. They had 3 big fights. We were hired to do the pre-sale. So we'd go live to all the cable systems across the U.S., get on and say, hey, this fight's about to start. If you haven't bought this pay-per-view event, now's the time to call. They'd pay us. We'd go home. One dilemma in that you find if you're using your brain and your knowledge to start a new company is that you don't have an asset. We had no assets. All we had was a service business, pay as you go, so to speak, so that we would charge somebody to let us come in, sell their product, then we go home, but we didn't own anything afterwards. So in that, I learned to take the next step to think, well, we could do programming. If we had a program we could put on the shelf, then we could resell it and residuals and all that. So I looked around at what's the #1 show on cable television today, back in the 90s, and I think it still might be today, World Wrestling Federation. And I thought, geez, I want to do a show like that, but what other sport could we get professional players that are paid nothing? In wrestling, you play in high school, you play in college, but after that, you're pretty much done. WWE is where you go. Soccer, at that point, they weren't playing much. They had a national professional team, but they were paying them no money at all. So we hired a bunch of them, brought them inside on an ice rink, put down turf on the ice rink, and played full contact indoor soccer. And we called it soccer, SOCKER, Slam. Got it on Fox Sports World. And they did 4 shows, got more hate mail than they've ever had. Then we recut it and put it on Galavision. And the show sat idle because we got busy doing HBO. We owned the rights for it, and we got decent response on it. But then last December, a year ago December, theathletic.com found it and picked it up, and all of a sudden we just got someone who just completed a documentary on Soccer Slam and the making of Soccer Slam. And so that will probably air somewhere as a documentary on one of the streaming
Oh
services.
my gosh.
So, I mean, you just never know when it comes back, but you just keep trying. You get all the ideas. And the final thought, or not the final thought, but one thought I would give you as example in creating new ideas. I went, and you got to learn every day. You try to learn. And you gave me an example today of a new platform I could use for these streaming ideas. But when I went to Napa Valley and had wine, I always thought that they just had a vineyard out back, and that's where they only use those grapes to get their award-winning wine. No, the guy who's putting them together, he takes a bushel basket and he goes all across the valley and gets all these different varieties and shapes and forms. And in brainstorming, that's really what you want to do to get the best idea. It's just not the one idea that I get in my head. It's a group of people coming together. And the grapes that he gets aren't just white grapes, red grapes, different this grape, that. It's so diverse. That's why in ideas, and in today's society, we're such a diverse society. If everybody looks like you when you're brainstorming, you're not going to get the one that makes you all the money. So you get all these diverse ideas and you put them in that big bushel basket. That's the daring to dream. And there's no judgment. Ugly grape, good looking grape, round, oblong grape, all of them are in there. Then together with your group, you pick the one that rises to the top and prioritize. And that's where you dare to act, by taking that one and getting the award-winning bottle of wine. So I always like today you're going to hear 100 ideas that we're going to talk about, all these different things. But you're going to say, geez, my mind was spinning. But that's why sometimes they call me the idea dude. That I love doing is bringing all these ideas and then finding the one that works.
That is such a great example. And you are so right. There's no way that one person or two or three people can come up with the ideas that a bunch of people can, because when somebody else comes up with an idea, it's going to make another person think of something they never would have even thought of. So it's like exponential. Everybody builds on each other.
And group brainstorming is favorite, and a lot of people do that. Where they make the mistake is when they walk in, they have an accountant and the legal folks are in there, and they don't say to the rules. You can't say no to anything. Every good idea, build on our ideas, because we're not going to use any of these until we get back together. Then we all give our input, because the accountant's going to say it costs too much. Legal person's going to say you're going to get sued on that. But if you take those ideas, come back, prioritize them, and then act on the top one. As a group, you came together to do that. The second piece of that, which is kind of a trademark that when I do speeches on this, that most people don't realize, when I worked for the state, I came in and I did just what we're doing now. I said, hey, how about a lottery ticket? Do you have animals on it? Hey, could we paint the wall yellow? How about purple polka dots? All that. Well, 2 weeks later, the management staff was saying, oh my God, they just like to absolutely burn out. And I said, what's going on? They said, we can't do all this. I'm thinking, state government workers, what's going on here? They said, no, we can't do all this. And I realized that as the leader of an organization, you say, oh, poop, everybody runs to the bathroom. I mean, the employees want to please the boss. So they were trying to do everything. I said, no, we got to figure out a way to tell you what the priorities are. I'm just trying to give you ideas so we fill the bushel basket so we can get together and prioritize what works best for everyone. So we came up with something called COT, COT. And what that stands for is consider or throw away. So you use COT when you write somebody an email that I've got an idea, you throw that in the subject line, and immediately the rules are, one, you don't have to read it. You can delete it if you want to. If you do not respond, hey, that's a great idea, sucking up to the boss, or, ooh, I really don't like that because of this, that. No judgment. We don't want to hear anything about it. I just want to get it off my chest and give it to you. But what the key to this was people outside in the organization started sending ideas back our way. And so you get the receptionist who knows that the chair there is about to break, it's got stains, it's ugly. People are talking about it when they walk in the door. And she maybe has written it down and put it in the suggestion box, but 3 weeks later, before it gets to someone's desk, and then it's got to go clear around the horn before she's down in the break room saying, they never listen to my ideas. Now she or he has a way to write their idea, send it to everybody in it, And whether it's read or not, they know they've gotten it off their chest and they're not going to be fired because it's a dumb idea. So we started using COT, or for your, and I use that probably 50% of the time if I send stuff out. For your information, maybe 30% of the time, and a very short amount of time, action required, which says, this is something as the boss I want you to do.
Oh, okay. I love cot. That's cool. And it's so appropriate also in companies, because there's so many companies who are trying to teach their staff to think entrepreneurially after all of these years of trying to corral people and herd them down, whatever you call it, whatever you herd cows down.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it's really cool how more are trying to get people to not be afraid to come up with ideas.
And then you got the boss. When you do go into a brainstorming session, if you're letting people judge, it's not so much the words that are said,
Yeah.
it's the expressions. Someone says, "Hey, I want free beer in the office." What happens? Everybody's eye goes to the boss. Like that,
Yeah.
right? No, yeah, okay, yes. How about that? Well, how about free Pepsi? How about free Coke? The ideas start bouncing if you just realize there's no judgment in that first stage of daring to dream,
Yeah.
because the second step is sometimes the hardest, which is daring to act.
That's so true. So, and that's the name of your other book, right?
That's correct. Daring to dream, dare to dream, dare to act. Because I realized as a CEO, often, you think and you want to be buds with everybody, but you are the boss, and they're looking to you from leadership. And when I went to the lottery about the second day, I crawled out of the car and looked up at the building, thinking, "Oh my God, I'm at $350 million that they're putting me in charge of trying to help raise every year to sell, to sell in this lottery." That's crazy. But when you open the door, good bosses, good CEOs, good leadership will walk in and act confident. And when you say, this is what we're going to do, you'd be amazed at how the employees want to please you, and they will do everything they can. And many things that I was a little skeptical of us, with my confidence, they would go out and find a way to get it done. And that daring to act is a big step. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, it's a little bit tougher, because if you've made it as a single individual, then it's kind of tough as you grow and grow and grow and grow, that you probably don't really know that much about legal side or accounting side or some of the things that you're not proficient in. You want to start with an advisory group. You don't pay them anything. Just say, as buddies that do well, would you help me out? And then if you do well, give them a little stock or give them some profit sharing at some point. But you need to surround yourself with good people as you get there. And then at some point, usually entrepreneurs are not the ones like the Bill Gates that should be the CEOs. It should be somebody who knows how to manage people and do it, and let you as the person who's the creative person, an idea person, just keep firing the new ideas, and back to keeping a small percentage of all profits to create new development. That's why they call it R&D, research and development.
Yeah. Great advice, Terry. That's awesome. So
It's been fun. Now, you and I were also talking about, somebody asked me the other day, at 21, what would be two pieces of advice that I would give? One is, when you go into a company, you go to work for someone, or you go to work with people, the first thing you do is be the first to volunteer. Look around. If the boss says, bathroom just backed up, janitor's gone, who wants to clean it? That's me. Because you're going to be noticed, and you're going to be remembered of things you do that no one else would do, and they know you're a go-getter. So I think that helped me in the long run for doing things that no one else wanted to do, because I didn't think it could be done.
Yeah.
And the second is, I wish I'd have learned how to relax. At some point, you want to be able to disconnect. And once you feel the success of entrepreneurism, once you feel the success of making some money, it's tough to let up the foot, because boy, it is a great feeling. It's like cocaine or something else. I don't do cocaine or any other big drugs, because uh, doing and being successful in businesses is my drug, I guess, when it's all said and done. And Damon John did a session that I was with a few months ago, and he said something that I think is a great piece of advice. And here it is. He said that at night he has a list of, I don't think it's 5 or 6 things that he looks at, reviews, maybe edits a little bit. And when he wakes up in the morning, he does the same thing. He relooks at that list and reviews and edits. And you know what that list is? It isn't a list of, boy, I heard the greatest new invention or the greatest new entrepreneurial idea. These are 5 or 6 things that today I'm going to do for myself. Whether it's, I'm going to go ahead and have that chocolate drink that I don't have very often as a reward for saying I'm going to have a good day, or I'm
Mhm.
going to do this, or I'm going to do that, something that I'm going to, go pick the kids up at school, those sort of things,
Mhm.
because every day he's doing something that makes him personally happy. And I thought, wow, after all my old age, he just taught
Yeah.
me something really big.
Yeah, what a great idea. It shows that the best ideas can be very simple, but it's also a great reminder to us that we need to think about ourselves because we do. We get our nose down to the grindstone and we stop looking at everything around us. And I'm just as guilty of that as everybody else. So I need to start doing that thanks to Damon and you.
As you were talking, ideas that, good ideas not only make a lot of money, but also you save money. I went to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and on the back of I went in the bathroom, and on the back of the stool was a box, cardboard box, and it had a hole in it. And it said on the top, waste exfoliating cleanser. I'm thinking, what the heck is this? And I said, "Oh my God, talk about innovative from the accounting department." They realize that when you go to a hotel and you get this big bar of soap in a luxury hotel, you only use about that much on the outside. So what they did was take a big piece out of the middle, put the rest of the bar in the shower because that's all you need, and then put the other on the sink. And now they've just saved 50% on their expenses.
That
That's
is
incredible.
a good idea. That's awesome. But when you went to work for the lottery and you said you walked in and you're like $350 million, but didn't you increase it by like 50% while you
We
were there?
sure did. Our profits increased 50%, and you could have doubled that even. If you're the head of a gambling organization run by the state, and I'm glad the lotteries are run by states, because if you think something's unfair, you can go to the governor, you can go to
Yeah,
the lottery director. If you're playing poker in Malta on the internet, you don't have any idea whether that's fair and honest.
true.
But yeah, we raise the profits even bigger, but you want to do that in a responsible way. You don't want people. We always said, play with your head, not above your head,
Mhm.
because play with pop cans, something you can lose when you're spending. I think even if you're playing craps or blackjack in Vegas, most people you'll see, and it usually is after you. That's why they want you drinking.
Yeah,
You're standing at the table and you've lost, and you think, "Oh, I know I could win. I was so close. I just needed one more card." If you lose the money you take, set a limit, walk away, and say, "I just paid for entertainment, not that
yeah,
I paid to lose."
yeah. That's very important. My husband does that. His dad taught him that. I'm only going to play with what I'm willing to lose, and once I lose it, it's gone.
That's the best way to do it. You won't get in trouble that way. And the same goes being an entrepreneur. If you think that next big thing came up because you made it on the last one, take an amount of what you've made and put it off to the side. When you use that, will take you a long way.
Yeah, it sure will. Tell us about how y'all cracked the lottery scam.
Well, as I said, I was a marketing and sales and PR guy when I walked in, the business guy. But about 2 years in, somebody walked in and won a big jackpot. It was called Hot Lotto, and that's they about 17 states play. It's like Powerball. In fact,
Mhm.
it was run by the group that runs Powerball, which is all the state lotteries, and that organization collects the money from each state and then pays it back out depending on who wins. That way, you can have bigger jackpots. So, a
Mhm.
big jackpot was one, no big deal. Nobody came in, and that's logical because you have 365 days to claim a jackpot. But you usually want to get a lawyer or an accountant anyway. But
Yeah,
most people show up in the first week or two. No one showed up. Didn't show up 3 months in. Didn't show up 6 months in. So we started barking hard, and then you get the fake people who come in and say, "Oh, I think the clerk stole it from me." Had somebody say, "Hey, my husband, I think, is in the mafia because he drives a truck, and I haven't seen him, and he always goes to that particular convenience store, so he
oh,
must have bought it. I get half of it. It becomes it." So we had all these fake stories, but in lotteries, those tickets have a lot of detail for security, and we
yeah,
knew all of the people who claimed, couldn't tell us the serial number, all the details that were on that. Besides, we had video and audio of the person who bought the ticket, which we always collect on large jackpots. So nothing happened. And then in November, 11 months into it, a guy from Quebec City, Canada called and said, "Hey, I've got the ticket," gave us enough information. And employees are taught if it doesn't feel right, he just said, "Hey, send me the money. I'll send you the ticket. You send me the money." I'm like, geez, 16 point. I don't think so, buddy. She
yeah,
said. She sent it to security and to our public information group. And they started asking questions. The guy truly lied on the phone. And so we knew we had him busted for fraud, but we didn't know why he was doing that for 16.5 million. We invited him in hoping we could arrest him. He didn't show up. Another lawyer, which was his buddy, showed up, or didn't actually show up. He sent the ticket in to 2 lawyers in Des Moines to claim it. They probably thought we were going to arrest him if he showed up too. And ultimately, they claimed it an hour and a half before the ticket was to expire. Well, all of that stunk. Ding, 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 something's up. So we decided we weren't going to pay it. We are going to make a court decide. They got scared and they just gave the money up.
Well, that's a big red flag, isn't it?
Even Bill Gates, I think, would take 16.5
Yeah.
million if he won it. So they started an investigation, and 3 years later, we finally got to the point where we were allowed to go talk to both of the guy in New York and Quebec City, Canada, because you're crossing state lines. We would hope would have been an FBI, but there were terrorism and everything else they were doing. So we got to talk to both of them, and I hope you never get asked this question. Do you want to be the defendant or do you want to be the witness? Both of them decided to be the witness. They said, we got the ticket from a lawyer in Houston. We think his client's name is Robert Rhodes. But we couldn't figure out why Robert Rhodes would bought it. The DCI, or Department of Criminal Investigation, went down to talk to him, and he disappeared. So did his attorney. So they never did get a chance to talk to him. So we released the videotape, and it had audio and video. And all of a sudden, we started getting calls. Said, wait a minute, that's a guy named Eddie Tipton. Who's Eddie Tipton? Well, he was the IT guy and the security person and the person who programmed the computer for the Multi-State Lottery Association, which is the company that draws the numbers for that game. He was the one that wrote the program. Ding, 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 something screwy. Well, ultimately, he was fired or let go and put on administrative leave, all that sort of stuff. And the DCI got him enough evidence to say he must have done it because he programmed it, he compiled the information, and he, after he wrote the code, and he supervised the drawings from an IT standpoint, and his best friend won, so they filed charges against him. And lo and behold, that summer, he was found guilty along with Robert Rhodes, the guy he gave the ticket to, although we had no smoking gun. We didn't know how he did it. Well, just by chance, it was his unlucky day because he brought in his brother from Texas as a character witness so that he wouldn't get as much time now that he's found guilty. We didn't really have how he did it. It's just the jury said he must have because of all the circumstantial evidence. And his brother said, that couldn't be my brother, Eddie. He don't eat hot dogs. He's not a hot dog guy. Well, Eddie weighed, I'm guessing, between 300 and 400 pounds. And Eddie, all eyes turned to Eddie when he said that. And the Associated Press picked that up and put it out on the national wires, and it made it back to his brother who was testifying on the stand that couldn't have been him, to his hometown. And an FBI agent said, wait a minute, that brother, Tommy Tipton, not Eddie, the guy who wrote the code, but Tommy, his brother, we arrested him for money laundering. He fell out of a tree stand and we were interviewing him. He said he won a Colorado lottery. Ding, ding, ding. Sounds awfully coincidence. So that FBI agent then called our group, and together, we put it together. And here's the other thing I told you about. Hope you never ask the one question: do you want to be the witness or the defendant? The other is, if you're listening to this, if you're doing anything illegal, do not use your cell phone. Do not use any kind of social media. Eddie, Robert Rhodes, and Tommy all had all of their contacts. So we took all of those names, just cross-referenced them against all lottery winners in America, and immediately found 4 or 5 jackpots that had been won by people within personal.
Wow.
So through all of that, we ultimately got the smoking gun, and Robert Rhodes confessed. All 3, the evidence was so good, all 3 confessed and pleaded guilty and got probation and jail time and prison time for the largest lottery fraud in U.S. history. Now, the big part is you heard about the ticket and you heard about hot dogs, how that helped. But Tommy Tipton, Bigfoot even got in on the story because Tommy Tipton was a Bigfoot hunter. He was up in the tree hunting Bigfoot when he fell out of it and was in the hospital, and the FBI interviewed him. So he was using his Bigfoot hunting friends to go in and cash a ticket and then giving him cash. So, I mean, it got stranger and stranger, made a lot of national news. And someday there's been a couple of documentaries or specials on it. I imagine I don't think it'll be as big as Tiger King, but you may see something in the near future.
That's so funny. And I have read a lot about it over the years. And as a matter of fact, just a couple of months ago, I read another article about it. So I definitely need to, I'm a true crime person anyway. So
yeah.
Keep my eye open for that. That'll be fun.
Well, because it was the middle of it, there's a couple of lessons. It comes back to if you're an entrepreneur or you're a business owner. I wrote a book on that called The $80 billion Gamble, available on Amazon. Not going to do a shameless plug, but it's available on Amazon.
Yeah, do
And
it.
that has all the details. It's really a complicated story, but it's a that's that if you want the full details, we wrote right after the incident and the finding of guilt so that we could document what the true story is in case it gets glamorized in some way, shape, or
Yeah.
form. But here's the lesson. If you own a business, or if you're part of a church, or you're part of a school, the American Society of Fraud Examiners has a really cool little triangle grid that says, here are the three things that will create internal fraud. And because I went through it, I've lost a lot of friends because everybody kept saying, you're going to hurt our industry. We make $80 billion a year, and you're going to tarnish that industry, and we may lose money if you're not right. Because
Hmm.
everything was circumstantial for almost 7 years. But we kept saying we got to make sure it's fair and honest and people know we go after it. But that triangle says the reason people steal: one, financial opportunity, or financial need. Now, you and I would like more money. I don't care what day it is, how much you make, you're always going to find somebody with a bigger boat, bigger car. So we all
Right.
want more money. But it's when something happens dramatically in your life that you're saying, what do I have to do to get money? You lose money in gambling, kids go to college, they overspend your credit cards, divorce is a big one.
Yeah.
That's when you have employees usually trying to say, I wonder, whether if I could make some money here or do something internally. Second is opportunity. And I say the old checks and balance is a good example of this. So
Yeah.
if you write the checks and write the POs, and that's the way most church secretaries have it, the way often school business managers have it, because they want to put the money in teachers, not in the oversight in accounting,
Hmm.
then you have all the keys to the kingdom. Eddie had all the keys to the kingdom too. And so when you have all the keys to the kingdom, that's why you see these churches and schools and small businesses off being taken advantage of, especially entrepreneurs. If you as the head of it aren't that sharp and all that, and you're having somebody try to handle everything itself. The third and final, if you had the opportunity, and as a CEO, you usually have the opportunity because you control the money and you sometimes have the financial need if things are going bad. But the other is a rationale. That's the third element. You can get both of those others, but at some point you got to say, you know what? Everybody over here is making more money than I am. They're working me to death. I deserve more money. They working me too hard, so I deserve more money, and I think I can figure out a way. And so usually they'll take a little bit and then a little more, and ultimately they go for the big one, and you're almost always caught. So
Yeah.
those are the three key elements that really lent itself even to this story, that I go out and talk to a lot of financial institutions and organizations to just keep your eyes open. Everybody worries about external fraud, hacking from the outside. Internal fraud is equally dangerous.
Okay, everybody out there, listen to that and take notes. When we lived in Florida, our business partner, we owned a boat dealership back in the early 90s, and our business partner also owned the marina, and his bookkeeper did that. And you're right, they start with a little bit. And I think most people in that situation probably feel like, well, I need it right now and I'll put it back. But then then it keeps going and they're like, shoot, I got rid of, I did, and it just keeps ballooning.
And to the point that then they head for the casino with what they still owe or what they tried to pay back and double it down and then lose it all. It gets
Yeah.
ugly.
You have so many amazing stories.
Well, I appreciate that. I love telling them too.
No, it's
Yeah,
all,
it's been a really fun life, and having the last name Rich never hurts either.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So let's talk some more about about your other book, um, Dare to Dream, Dare to Act, right?
Sure.
Yeah, because I want everybody to buy both. So the $80 billion gamble, Dare to Dream, Dare to Act. But so let's talk about that, some of the other stories of dreaming and acting.
I think that the lottery, everything. Some people sometimes ask, "What's the most fun job?" It's the variety that makes life fun. If you're
Yeah.
doing the same thing, if I had to put nuts on bolts every single day, I would go nuts.
Uh-huh.
So I think taking that first step. The other is my dad came through the depression,
Yeah.
and he probably, as a farmer, he bought some farmland, but he could have made so much more if he'd just leveraged up, which many people did, and many people made it, but many people lost too. So he paid cash for a lot. So I always try to be very cautious, and once I've made some money, to try to keep it, reinvest it, and diversify it as
Mhm.
as as quickly as possible. And I think that's the same even with with business. I could have lost a lot even with the cable. I mean, I was making decent money as a salary. I was receiving stock options, but they were in the company I was working for. And we had a stock purchase plan, which they matched, but they were all in the same, my company's
Yeah.
stock. And I had a buddy who was in a company called Adelphia who had the same thing. He had millions of dollars, and boom, the company went under where the president had made one or two bad moves, and he lost everything, including these homes.
I remember
So,
that company.
yeah,
Yeah.
your diversification is I think a key element in all of that as you look at it. But I think knowing that you're going to fail, and I always tell the failure is the first step to success. I tell the story that I learned that from a very famous female philosopher, I think one of the best female philosophers I know. Her name is Brinley Dagstead. You see, Brinley's my granddaughter, and she
Oh,
came over when she was little, and she pulled herself over to the couch and pulled herself up. Well, what do kids do at that age? She turned around and took a step. And what happened? Boom! She fell over. She failed. But what did she do? She didn't know any different. She crawled over, pulled herself up, and took 2 steps. Then, boom, she failed
yeah.
again. Well, she failed 5, 6, 7. She failed a lot of times before she succeeded in learning how to walk, and now she can run all over the house.
Yeah.
Well, business is the same way. Too many times we, as a business entrepreneur, you have an idea and you think, well, yeah, then it doesn't work, and you don't figure out and take the next step and get the people around you to find out what would make it work, because passion is a big thing in being an entrepreneur too. I mean, if you believe in it, you'll do well. That's why the person, when you're doing brainstorming in a big company, the person who came up with the idea has to be on the committee, because they're the ones that will have the enthusiasm
Yeah.
to put it all together. So
Mhm.
those are some general thoughts, I think, as I think about failure and making sure. I've got one right now. Let me give you $1 million idea that I know is going to work, and I just haven't got anybody to put it up. So I get calls all the time. And another time I failed was the Botanical Center. They had the same problem the zoo did, run by the city, losing a lot of money. So they called me in, the nonprofit group, and said, what would you do to help? And so I gave them a bunch of ideas. I just brainstormed, didn't know who this one person was over here, but who cares? I'll give you ideas. I
Yeah.
like talking. So I gave all these ideas, and the next Sunday morning, I figured out the guy sitting over here was the editorial writer. Now, not the editorial writer, the little ones. This is the half-page deal in the Sunday paper. And if your name is in it, you're usually going to get fired somehow.
Yeah.
And it says, what's a big idea, think or think? And the first comment was, grow marijuana display. Show kids and parents what it looks like so they don't grow it at home. Or get a Venus flytrap big enough to suck down a cow. Well,
Oh,
I mean,
funny.
they didn't take any of those ideas, but their ideas ultimately succeeded in a really cool botanical center that they rebuilt, because they thought if I wasn't going to get fired, they probably won't either. But my one idea that came also from that was a little small town that called and said, we're a quarter of a mile off the interstate, 60,000 cars go by. So this is a fun experiment you can have a group just for fun to get your mind going for brainstorming. What could we do to bring 60,000 cars going by, bring 10% of those in to make money?
Mhm.
Well, everybody stops and gets gas. Everybody stops and gets food. And there's usually a McDonald's and a gas station of some sort at every darn interstate. They were on exit 88. And we started thinking, how about, what else do you need? You need restrooms, especially as families, clean restrooms,
Yeah.
big ones that you can get in and get out. So let's do a great big building, and let's put 50 men's over here, 50 women's stalls over here. Let's decorate each of them different. Let's get Kohler and Gerber to bring their latest models out. We'll do research. We'll have Charmin provide the toilet paper for research. We'll sell Baby Ruths and Tootsie Rolls and stuff out front. We'll get T-shirts. I got pooped out in Menlo, Iowa. We'll get to launch it. You don't have to spend any kind of money, because you have a king. We'll get a king to come over and sit on the throne. I mean, every late night talk show is going to be talking about it. And we'll do an outhouse outside. We'll have a place for dogs and for animals to be able to go. Everybody's going to stop and talk about this as they come in, because it's a rest stop. You have chairs so you can actually rest. But the big thing is they were exit 88. So we could do Burma shave signs all over saying, urinate at exit 88.
I love
Now
it.
that's going to bring people in somewhere. No one's done that yet, but I still think that's $1 million. Okay, I'll give you one more $1 million idea. I think we got time, don't we? One more. So when we looked at doing, there was a group, some states did Powerball, some states did Mega Millions. And during the recession in 2008, I was a director and we were on the boards to say, how do we merge these two together? So when you guys have a big jackpot, we can sell yours and you can sell ours, and we have a big jackpot. Well, too many egos, too much
Yeah.
politics. So we decided just to cross sell each other. So we'd still own Powerball, they'd own Mega Millions. But they said, could you help us with publicize? How could we publicize this when you guys launch Mega Millions? And okay, well, driving home, I looked up, and you know how the moon, sometimes you just see the little sliver of the thumbnail. The
Yeah.
rest of it's dark. Wow, what if we could get a spotlight or a laser to project the Mega Millions logo on the moon? We could own the moon as a billboard. No one owns that yet, right? So I called up to my alma mater and said, hey, and they started hanging up on me. They thought I was a kook, but I got a hold of the University of Iowa physicist who said, well, the atmosphere is going to break it up. You're going to have to really powerful. But he said, if you could get it up on a outside the atmosphere, you might be able to, but it's pretty bright because the sun, you're projecting against the sun, which has a little sliver over here in the dark. You got to bring it
Uh-huh.
up. And then I started thinking, I got to get with Elon Musk and get this idea going.
That's right. All right. Well, I know somebody that can connect you with Elon. We'll see if he can do that for you.
Sounds good.
I love those stories though. And you're so right. It's just coming up with ideas and throwing them out and hash it. I have a client that's a town that's on Interstate 85, and they bring in so much money from sales tax because of, you know, gas stations and convenience stores and everything. But I don't think they've done anything like really unique. So I'll have to tell them about, just maybe it'll get something going in their mind.
Wasn't what's the name of the company in either South or North Dakota? They just give out free water. I mean, they've been known for that forever and ever and ever and ever. I mean, it does not take much in dollars, just like selling the poop. Once we started selling the poop at the zoo, for keeping deer away, the free publicity brought so many people in. The other thing we did at the zoo, which was kind of fun, was I wanted to have a parade, but you really can't lead the giraffes down that. But you woke up one morning and all of a sudden the radio station was saying there's a huge, and you had the mayor, you had the governor, all these people were leading the tigers and the giraffes and every animal that we had at the zoo for 3 hours. They would break in with reports from the deal. But the day that we did this on was April 1st,
Mm.
April Fool's Day. So we had people driving all over looking for this darn parade. And of course we didn't do it. And then I found a 50-gallon drum, painted it red. And inside I had 3 baseball bats that I'd painted red. And then we put a thing over, and we told them that we had a brand new exhibit called the Exotic Red Bat Exhibit. They were real dangerous. We think they came from Raleigh, or we came up with all sorts and we had all sorts of people coming in to see that. It cost us what, $48 rather than $2 million to build a new exhibit.
That's so funny. And even if it's totally ridiculous, people don't like to feel like they're missing out on anything.
They get the
So if
gig.
somebody else does, they're like,
That's
I
the
got to go
key.
see that, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and I love what you said earlier about things going viral, like back in the 80s or 90s or whenever that was, because a lot of younger people think, oh, only online can you go viral. And they don't realize, that anything could go viral at any time. It's just a difference in degree and reach.
I think the retention today, when something big happens, there's something big tomorrow. I think Tiger King, when we were all stuck inside, the Tiger King was one that stuck really well. It was
Yeah.
amazing. But if you just keep remembering when you're trying to do something, is getting that bushel basket full and writing all of those ideas down and putting them aside. And then once a quarter, you get the group back together and just go through them all and reprioritize it, because maybe there was an invention since the time you last looked at them that makes it really cool. But almost everything you touch, there's a better way of doing something. I mean, think of anything that we're doing. Glasses, contacts are better. Someone saw something and saw a need and adapted to that need and then put it together.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, my followers already know this. But I realized after I was well into adulthood, I always thought I was weird. I was like, why am I so weird? Why do I think differently? It took me many years to realize that it's because my father was blind and he did anything he wanted to do. He played basketball with us. He had a horse. He had a wood shop in our basement with a lathe and all that. And I never heard him say, I can't do in whatever. And so it's not like he walked around and said, I'm blind, watch me, blah, blah, blah. But when you grow up in that atmosphere, you just naturally learn to Oh, okay. If you can't go this way, back up and go this way. Figure out a way to make it happen.
Yeah, I remember Ted Turner because he was one that really taught me if this guy can do it, why can't I? I mean, we brought him in for a speech one time, and I drove him from the airport, and he was on the phone. He hung up, and he just looked down. I said, "Ted, what's going on?" He said, "Well, they just told me I'm now worth $500 million, but I said I'm still seeing 2 psychologists every week." And I'm thinking, man, if this guy can do it, why the heck can't I?
Yeah.
And that was always and the same thing for me. I'm off the farm. I didn't have much of anything growing up. We weren't rich, and we were rich in soul and rich in trying to do something new. So when bad things happen, just like every time you fail, you try to figure out how can we get something good out of it.
That's awesome. I love that. And the Ted Turner story is also a great example, going back to what we said earlier. Money's not everything. And
Absolutely.
there's one person that I know who's very close to me, and I fuss at them because I'm like, it doesn't matter where you go, you always end up with yourself. So if you're not happy with yourself, you got to figure out what you're going to do and how to deal with it because you can't ever get away from yourself.
Yep. Back to Damon John. Look for one thing every day you can do for yourself. It isn't selfish. It's just you're trying to pump yourself up. I'm very superstitious. I was before I did the lottery. And so I had good luck one time when I went to and I sold the biggest project of my life, that free preview to a company, a great big one. I sold it in 10 minutes and I realized what I had. So I always have that breakfast before I go in on any major pitch. Or if I need a good day, I go in and have that breakfast, even though it's way more calories than I ever should have. But I just know that that puts my mind in the right frame of mind
Uh-huh.
to make it succeed that day.
Yeah, because it sets you up for success. That's awesome. Terry, I can't tell you how much I've appreciated your time today. I've had so much fun talking with you.
Me
And you
too.
are just,
And you didn't call me. You didn't call me a son of a rich once.
oh, I never even thought of that. See, if I had had a bucket with people throwing ideas in it, somebody would have probably thrown that idea in it.
Probably.
Something you said a minute ago before we go, you said, and we come back later. We put everything in it and we come back later. I think that's something that people need to take away also. Even if you don't think it's a good idea now, don't ditch it because like you said, you don't know what may have changed since, or it might make you think of something else.
That's and the best example for me was the Carson show. I failed in all of getting in all that. Somebody mentioned the satellite dish, that they might do it, and I didn't think anything about it till a year or two later, when I kept thinking about how could I make it so I don't have to travel all over to do this, and why couldn't I do a satellite dish and just do it once, and it came back. So those ideas can definitely be fruitful.
What a great story. So tell them where they can go to find out more about you. And oh, by the way, y'all, I know he's already said he's a speaker, but y'all can, if you're a member of a group or a company that's looking for a great keynote speaker, Terry's great. So tell them where they can find out more about you and buy the books.
The easiest place is just go to terryspeaks.com. You'll see both books there. They have the link you right to the books, but just basically Terry, Terry, terryspeaks.com.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Terry. Next time I'm in Des Moines to visit family, we have to get together.
Yeah, call. Heck yes.
I've had a great time talking with you. Thank you so much for your time, and everybody else. I will see y'all next week.
Have a good one.
Bye.